Hello, Rachel. How are you today?
I'm good, George. How are you?
I'm doing very good. Thank you. I so much appreciate you participating in our first video round for flipped advising. And so I wonder, Rachel, if you might want to introduce yourself and where you're from and go from there.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for having me. So I'm Rachel Mars. I'm the academic advisor for our healthcare management program at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, or UAB. Go Blazers. And I'm the primary advisor, so I really advise a lot of our students, basically anybody from that has 110 credit hours or less in our program. And so I really see them until they get ready to graduate or get ready to intern, because that's kind of like the cutoff with my colleague. And so yeah, I kind of am the end all be all when it comes to advising for those first couple of years. And then I also manage our Canvas Student Center, which is what we're talking about today with the flipped advising approach. And so one of the reasons, we have utilized this approach is because we have an online major and an on-campus major. Our online program has become a lot more popular in the last couple of years. And so we are really leaning into the technology piece to really make sure our students have access to all the information they need. And so, so yeah, that's who I am. I've been in advising. I'm going into my fifth academic year of advising, 6 years of experience, but actually doing advising. So, because I've been doing advising since 2015. And so I've been in higher education for going on 7 years. And then beyond that with undergraduate experience and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I love advising. I love NACADA. I really enjoyed the e-tutorial that I did with you. I think that was last summer.
Last summer.
It feels like longer because it feels like it's been like 3 years.
It's been a long year.
Yeah, exactly.
Very much so.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, so that's why I'm here today. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I appreciate it. And speaking of the e-tutorial, one of the things that we talked about in that e-tutorial was we were talking about flipped advising, and you mentioned that you had developed a site at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, in your particular area. And I said, good, let me see it. And you showed it to me. I was very impressed because what I thought that you had really accomplished with your site was to create a student portal within the learning management system of Canvas. So I'm wondering if what you might want to do is to, if possible, why did you try to go into the flipped advising approach? And then we'll take a look at some of those elements that you have really nicely developed.
Yeah, definitely. I was about to ask you if you wanted me to share it. So the reason why, so I didn't actually completely develop it. I kind of came into it. I kind of inherited it. It began in January 2018. My colleague, who had been the primary advisor, advising manager, whatever you want to call her, for a while, she saw a need that our students were asking some of the same questions. And then we also have an internship at the end of our program that we needed a place to house kind of pre-internship activities for them, because there's a process that they have to go through to get placed, and they have to upload a resume, and they have to do all of these different things. And so we were trying to kind of kill two birds with one stone, create a central location for students to really get connected to us. And then we also did not have access to doing a student listserv for whatever reason. I'm not really positive why that was, but this also created a way for us to kind of auto-enroll students into a Canvas course. They always have a way to connect with us as a program, and then they also can receive information from us that they need. So that was kind of how I inherited. That's what I came into. And then what I did was I kind of ran with it, and I have used it as a way to upload a lot of information to them that they may be getting from other sources. But we all know that students don't read their emails because they get thousands of them a day. And so we were trying to kind of cut through the noise. And so instead of, because they have to go into Canvas for their courses anyway, why not use that resource that we already have that was a free technology? Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of where we came into the development of it. I've only been in this position for, in August will be 2 years. And so I've tried to really just be much more proactive in the last year, because I'm more comfortable with it now, because I had never done this type of approach before, because at previous institutions, it was kind of like a no-no for advisors to have access to academic technology if they weren't doing an academic course. So it's cool to see that progression as I've gone through my advising roles. And so yeah, that's kind of what I do with it. I am the sole manager of it, really. We have student workers who kind of help us manage a little bit of the information upload, just because it can be a lot of information from events that we want to put on the calendar so it shows up in their to-do list to other things like that. So there's just it's a lot of information, but it is, like you said, a student portal. And I will share that with you right now if you want me to.
Please do. Please do.
All right. So yeah, so I just kind of opened up this page, but in the previous page, if you go to the dashboard section over here, it just looks like another course that's listed on their Canvas shell. So we also have an advising Canvas shell that's for all advisors on campus. So we have a way to disseminate information to them as well. But if they click this, it will show up, and it just shows a way for them to kind of access the information. This is currently showing in my view, so I'm actually going to change it to student view so you can see it from their eyes. Mm-hmm. And so it just kind of looks like that when they click on it. We have kind of taken it upon ourselves to make it a little bit more accessible because, as we all know, they could click the announcements in the module section and get to where they need to go, but a lot of times they are not quite as intuitive when it comes to that. So we tried to make it more intuitive for them to really come in and say, oh, I need to think about advising and registration. And they can click advising and registration, and it takes them to the modules that are associated with it. And so we have uploaded, like, this is a common one that we get because Susan, my colleague, was the advisor for years and years before I came in. And so we were trying to make it clear. And then now that I've been more, I guess, part of the program over the last 2 years, it's become clearer. But they can click who is my advisor and just kind of showing you what our modules look like. And forgive this awful picture of me, but wait, that's not the bad one. There was a bad one a couple of weeks ago.
Looks good. It looks good.
And so this kind of shows who's my advisor. So we put me first because obviously I see them when they come in early on. So it kind of goes there. And then with everything that has been going on with COVID, we've kind of added more information because that way they don't have to go to another module to make an appointment. I was doing drop-in advising via Zoom early on in the summer in May, really. And then nobody's been taking advantage of it the last few weeks. So I kind of just said, okay, we're gonna take the month of July off and we'll restart it in the fall. And then to make a personal advising appointment, we use Appointment Manager. So we made the link that's clickable so they can literally click it and go to the what am I trying to say?
Scheduling.
Yeah, the scheduling appointment. And then also I just went ahead and said to email Ms. Mars, click here, because that way and then we also put the email, the office phone number, the office location. And then I was getting a lot of recommendation and reference letter requests. And we also did a separate module about this, but I put in here clearly what I require for students to request that. And then Susan, she does her scheduling a little bit different because she has less students than I do. So she finds it easier just to, she has the appointment scheduler, but she prefers them to email her. So,
okay.
And then we have our location of our advising office. Obviously nobody is there, but we do have student assistants that help us from time to time. And so when we have one that is active, we will put their information here so they know who they're talking to if they, happen to show up or whatever. And then we have just a general email that we want them to use. And so yeah, so if we go back to the home, and there, that's one of the areas. We also have a welcome portal, module. So I've kind of streamlined this a little bit. We were getting lots of questions about information. So this is the very first module at the list on the module section. And so we have like a welcome to the healthcare management major from our program director in there. We also have a list of our faculty, so they know, like, if they're looking at their courses on the course search, there's lots of that. So, and then one of the things that we require as a School of Health Professions is they have to do a background check and drug screening, which that process is changing. So we're actually currently updating that. But anytime someone becomes a new major, whether that's by traditional entrance to the school or they change into our program, they receive an email from me or Susan that says hey, here's some information for you to know. Please go review this in the Student Center and let me know if you have questions. And then that's kind of how we direct them to that. And then we've been working on doing that a lot more with just our current students, like, hey, about the information in the Student Center, go to this module. Like, try to make sure that they use it. But yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much it. Just kind of letting you guys see what we've done.
So you have everything in here from resources to the academic programming. How does look at scheduling? I saw that you had an announcement for financial aid assistance to folks. So
yes,
interesting.
Yeah, and so that's the announcements area is a big part of our I guess our communication with students using the Student Center. It's a way for us to centralize notifications about what's going on. So, for example, we have our virtual graduation this summer. They are doing virtual commencement. Well, students told me last semester in spring they did the same thing, but they never got a notice. So this summer, what I did was to actually put it in our Student Center saying, "Are you graduating? Share your note, share your information," and trying to make it more fun.
And just to sort of people who might not be familiar with all this, by putting this announcement here, this goes out to every student's account in the learning management system.
Yes, that's correct. And so what it does is if you're not familiar with Canvas, oh, I can't see that. I can't see the dashboard in student view, so I'm going to leave the student view. But so every student should have a similar viewpoint of this on their homepage, because I've seen their students. And so what happens is at the top of their dashboard, the announcement will show. So it says announcement from SHP HCM Student Center, and then whatever the message is. So that's already there. And then it's always going to be in their inbox on Canvas as well.
Okay, great. Could you show us one or two things like resources and curriculum in terms of the Student Center?
Sure, definitely. So that is going to be housed under our, I believe it's under advising and registration. Yeah. So, so one of the things that I took upon myself whenever I came into this program is we don't really have physical curriculum sheets. We just have what's in the catalog. And so I made a curriculum map, and what my curriculum map really looks like is, well, I guess it's not showing, it's something, it's a clickable link. And so basically, I did a PDF, and then I don't know if that's still a PDF or not. Yeah, that's a document. Okay. So if I can show you this, if it will download. So I made this, and I use it as a mapping feature.
Great.
And so it shows all of the classes that we have listed in our catalog for the most part. There are a couple on here that are not active for every student, but they're active if you're finishing out that track. So for example, like our long-term care management internship is not active for everybody right now because we're no longer offering that track, but everyone takes a 481 class, whether that's a 6 or a 3. And then what I do is whenever I'm doing an initial intake appointment with the student, whether that's from orientation's a little bit more complicated because I don't have as much time. So I try to just get the basics. And then we have a later intake appointment where we actually make a course plan that shows them exactly where their classes are going to be and how many they're going to take a semester. Because we try to get them to identify, I want to finish faster, I want to finish later, or I want to do a fast track, trying to get them to think about their long-term goals sooner rather than later. And then the other piece of this is that we have kind of a lockstep when we offer classes. So for example, we have several classes that are offered every semester. So I try to plan those sooner rather than later because they're also prerequisites. And so that's kind of one of the curriculum mapping features that we use.
Great.
So we also have like the core curriculum link here. This is also something I made coming in. Oh, well, that does not look correct. I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
But I have a PDF of that as well in here. And so it's just a checklist because we have a lot of students who go on to graduate school, like in occupational therapy, physical therapy. And so there are prereqs they have to complete for those. So we have that listed here. And then we also have links to the undergraduate catalog, transfer information.
The GPA calculator, what does that look like?
So that is, I believe that's a link. Okay. Yeah. So in our graduate planning system, or what people know as DegreeWorks, there is a GPA calculator. And so this kind of just helps them navigate that piece as well. We also obviously help them with that if they want to. Most of the time we're talking about if they're accessing this piece, they're usually in the throes of trying to figure out if they're going to be put on academic probation with our program or dismissed because they haven't done super great in their classes. So
this is great. So basically it looks to me like what you've been able to do here is to, within this one site, pull together information from across the campus, maybe even external to the campus, because it's all relevant to your students and it's all here in one location. So it is a true portal in that regard.
absolutely. And it might be a little bit redundant with some of the information they're receiving on the actual student portal, because that also they have, the cool thing is that on their student portal, they actually have access to this Canvas system. So, so they are able to get here. So it's like, it pulls it together and then we pull it even more together for them. And then, yeah, we do definitely try to include information that may not be as relevant to them, like if they're not looking for it. So they may not be looking for that specific information, but if we hear about events or things that are going on with them that they need to know, we try to make sure that it's valid and applicable here. And we always try to keep this updated. Like that's the other thing, is that I was going through our internship and events tab a couple of days ago, and I was like, this actually already happened. Let's delete that. And so that's one of the pieces that our students assistant really try to help us with too.
That's great. Well, this is wonderful. I wonder if I might be able to ask you a few questions about, this is obviously a massive amount of work. But so I was wondering, what type of challenges did you meet when you ended up by going down this path and building this?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. One of the, I guess, challenges you could definitely say is there is some, I don't want to say pushback, but that's kind of what it really equates to. Pushback, essentially, that academic technology should not be used for non-academic purposes, but this, you know, because there's even still pockets of resistance when it comes to professional versus, you know, non-professional advisors or advisors being advised by faculty. And so one of the things that we really faced was trying to get access to the technology at first. And so when we finally got access to it, the other part of the challenge was, what information do we include and how do we organize it? Because we don't want it to be overwhelming. You know, if a student pops on and goes to look at all those modules pages, they might get overwhelmed and be like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. So that's where really this homepage came to be from, because we wanted to make it a first look. Like, it's like, oh, my question relates to this. So making sure that like the information that we could all just go in and make all these modules and it'd be great. But if the student is overwhelmed when they first look at it, they're not going to go any further. Like, they will stop. And so I think that's definitely getting them to like just be comfortable using it, which we're honestly, I mean, we've only had this for 2 years now. And so we're still getting our students comfortable accessing the information, which that's a challenge we're facing, is just getting them to actually go through and look at the information, which one of the things that we're trying to do is, like, if a student has a question that can be answered by the Student Center, we're referring them to this module. We're saying, go to the Student Center and click on Advising and Registration, and you'll see a module about who is your advisor, and, you know, stuff like that, things that we can use that for. And yeah, I think those are kind of our biggest challenges. We're just gaining access to the technology, knowing what to include, and then getting students to actually use it, which for us, our online population of students there, and even our on-campus students, they all use Canvas anyway for their classes. So it's getting a little bit easier for them to know, oh, this is actually there for me. I can use this.
That's great. Well, I'm glad that you still are sharing the screen here, because what I wanted to talk to you about was, of course, you have new analytics there. We can't look at those because, of course, those would be students and be a violation of security of FERPA. But in general, what type of proof do you have, or evidence do you have that there is success with this approach?
Yeah, definitely. So in the analytics feature, we can see each individual student and their online activity. And so we can see when they have accessed it, when they have not, when they last accessed it. So that's obviously a way that we can do that, to see like what they're actually using, what they're actually not. And sometimes that does inform our decision about maybe we need to tweak a particular section to not include this information because nobody's using it. Right. The other part is that we kind of measure the success of what they are retaining. based upon their visits to the student center. So if someone, let's say Susie Q, Miss Mars, I would like to know what the healthcare management curriculum looks like. Okay, Susie. So you can actually go to the advising registration and look at the healthcare management curriculum map. And if she actually goes and does that and then comes back with questions that, you can tell when a student has actually done what you asked them to do by the information they kind of regurgitate to you, or whenever the conversation is, you can tell when they're informed or when they're not. And I mean, one of the things that we've had to do is we also have to retrain ourselves not to just answer the question. We have to train ourselves to say, okay, that's actually located here and here and here. Go to this module, do this, look at the calendar, that kind of thing. Because like one of the common questions we're getting right now is, I need to find a job. I need to find a job, because everybody's concerned about finances and stuff right now. And so we have linked career center resources like the Handshake, which is our basically database kind of for our career center. And so that's one of the ways that we're trying to kind of just, I guess, retrain ourselves, is to not just answer the question. It says, hey, go to the student center and actually use the links that are there. And then whenever they come back to us with follow-up questions, because we're happy to answer those,
Right.
You can tell when they have or haven't actually looked at the modules.
Excellent. And so as you've gone down this point, you can actually then get a pretty good idea of whether or not the students made a valid effort to look up the information and be as self-directed as possible.
Yes.
If they still don't understand it or don't grasp it, you still have that advisable moment where you still help them, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're not trying to, because I think sometimes students are like, why won't you just answer my question? We're trying to empower them to find the answer themselves, because the information is out there. And I know a lot of us have felt like at times we're like a human Google, like that. Sometimes that's how I feel. And so I'm trying to put the barrier that says, you're going to have to find this information for yourself in the future. So let's find it now and go from there.
Okay, great. Yeah. Okay. Looking back at the what you've developed here, it's quite extensive. So I'm wondering, what are your future plans? What are your future efforts that you're going to try to focus on in terms of developing this further?
Definitely. I think, honestly, we use our internship, we use our healthcare management student center for some of our internship activities and stuff. And I really want us to kind of use it even more so for professional development, so that they can, so for example, if we see like a free online course that the Career Center is doing, the Career Center is actually making a course that we can include into our modules. So I'm hoping that we can actually include that in the future as part of their internship experience. So they have a certificate or whatever they're awarded at the end of that course that says, I've completed this, because, valid experience is something we all need. I also hope that we can really incorporate it into their orientation process, that they have to do either like a quiz or something that shows that they've actually done a thorough, I guess, run through of what the student center has to offer. Don't want to make it difficult or anything for them, but we want to make sure that they're actually utilizing these resources. And then one of the ways that I've been thinking, something I'm still toying with, is that the communication piece. So, Canvas, you can actually message with students, and we use it for a mass dissemination of information. But I honestly wonder if there is a way that we can use it more individualized, because we have students who reach out to me through Canvas because they're just already on Canvas. And so they can, kind of like email, they just message me on there. And so I'm really torn about this, because I want to teach our students professional communication, and they need to learn how to email because they're not going to have a Canvas course show with their employer. But I also want to utilize a resource that maybe can, I guess, combine all of the academic communication in one, so that my inbox isn't quite as blown up as it is most days. But that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is like, what is next, and where do we go from here? Because I just want to make sure that we are utilizing this resource, because we all know if we don't utilize a resource, it's going to go away, and trying not to do that as well. So definitely something that I'm trying to do as well. And then something that you actually mentioned in our conversation a little bit earlier was we can actually put video introductions to each section with the record feature in Canvas. So I might actually do that. I was doing video announcements earlier this year, and I was literally recording it on iMovie, putting it on YouTube, and then linking it. And I was like, is there a way to make this easier? And so trying to, utilize those information, because I was trying to do informational videos for students who were having questions about our pass-fail policy, because they were all the same question. And it's one of those policies that you can't really explain. You can explain it thoroughly in an email, but it's going to take a lot of words. Whereas having a conversation that is, maybe it's me conversing to the video screen to you saying why you should choose pass-fail, why you should not, those kind of things. And so, because I'm sure everybody experienced this. It's been a complicated year in academia, right, with
exactly
what's going on.
Well, let me ask you this. Can you imagine not doing this approach in the future?
No, because so COVID-19, I think, is forcing us as advisors to become more comfortable with a hands-off information giving approach, if that makes sense. So I think one of the things that we believe advisors are needed is we have to be the answer. We have to do this, but we can be the answer, but we can do it indirectly. We don't have to be this constant back and forth, constant conversation. Sometimes students need that because there's other extenuating communication issues and preferences that they need, but we can create this resource for them. And then we have to train ourselves not to take over and be the information source. We have to point them toward the source, which a lot of us do really well. I just think, especially with COVID, and it's such an uncertain situation right now, we're going to have to make some certainty for ourselves, which is, I'm certain we're going to have more online education in the future than we will have in person because of just the risks. But we can be more certain about what the information we're giving to them by creating resources like this. And then it also takes a weight off of us to be the Google, to be the person that they come to, when we can just say, okay, go to this section of the Student Center and your answer's there. And then if they have follow-up questions, then we can talk about what they need to talk about.
Exactly. That's what we're here for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, do you have any last words of wisdom that you would like to share?
Be teachable when it comes to this technology. And what I mean by that is it's okay if something doesn't work the first time. I have tried multiple approaches in the last 2 years, and I've been really fortunate to work in an environment that is supportive. If an approach doesn't work, I can change it. And so, especially if you're a supervisor of advisors that is working, to even gain access to this technology, just know there's going to be trial and error, because you're going to have to learn what your students actually want and what your advisors also feel comfortable doing. Like, I feel completely comfortable doing videos. I feel completely comfortable doing this, but that's also my personality. My other my colleague does not feel that way. So just being open to the different and variety of approaches, and using your team and yourself, just knowing your strengths. Like, there's a lot of self-awareness that has to come through this process of figuring out what works and what doesn't. And then each program is going to be different for what works and what doesn't. So whereas we have all of this information put out there for everybody to use, it may not be that way for you, and that's okay. Like, everybody's going to be different, and that's all right.
That's great. Nice words too. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for taking time this afternoon and sharing the wonderful work that you are doing in your entire area and down at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. It's really quite spectacular. So I appreciate you sharing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I felt a little bit silly doing this, because I was like, it's so normal for me that I was like, what? I don't really have anything awesome to say. Like, I'm just showing you what we do normally. But I then remember that this isn't normal for everybody. So I appreciate the opportunity to share what's normal for us right now.
That's great. We all are, gain value from it. So we appreciate it.
Definitely.
Thank you. Have a good day, and we'll be in touch.